For what?
I'm going to try to do another police auction this year like we had last year.
You had a fantastic auction.
We did. It was the whole city.
Yeah.
So I'm going to ask the city manager if he'll approve that because we've got about 6 units. So I promised my guys I would drive the oldest unit on the lot until they got new units. So maybe I'll get upgraded from my 2007 Chevy Tahoe with 185,000 miles on it because that's what I drive.
Oh, that's good, Chief. Now, those 6 new vehicles, will they be available for our new officers?
Well, they're given based on seniority, right? Because cops like new equipment. So the sergeants will get the first ones. But the good news is with this capital outlay money coming, we should be able to get 6 new ones by the end of this year. So that's 12 new police cars in the span of a year.
Are we at full force now, Chief?
We are full force for what we're allocated to have. We have 23. Technically, we could have 28, but they need to unlock those positions, and that's a city decision.
Oh, right.
That's a funding decision.
Well, that shouldn't be too hard, right?
If the money's there.
Yeah.
So we have a waiting list of certified officers.
Wow.
So if they unlock that position, I can try to hire someone next week. But at 23, coming from 13 a year ago, we're in a pretty good spot.
Darn good spot.
Yes.
Darn good spot. You also had some other...
we got a lot of good news. We reestablished our canine division.
I saw that.
Yes, we have 2 canine dogs now, Loki and Drax. We have 2 certified canine handlers. You're talking about marijuana earlier. We had to down our canine program back in 2021 after they changed the marijuana laws because the old dogs were trained to hit on marijuana.
You can't use those dogs no more.
You can't use them. They become obsolete.
Wow.
And you can't untrain a dog to hit on marijuana. So the new dogs don't key on marijuana, but the other stuff.
What do they key on now?
Methamphetamine, hashish, all the hard drugs. So.
Wow.
Yeah.
Fentanyl?
And, there's a thing about fentanyl because it's mixed with acetaminophen, to the best of my knowledge, and it's hard for a dog to detect that. So I don't know that canines are so good on that, which I wish they were because that's our number one problem right now. We run into fentanyl every day. Every week we're Narcaning someone and bringing them back because they have no vital signs. It's terrible.
My goodness, Chief.
Other things that we're doing, our parking lot and fence project is finally done. That was paid for by a capital outlay. We're upgrading security in our evidence lot. And then I think you wanted to talk about Operation Cleanup.
Yes. Very successful.
It is, and the good news is city manager just approved $50,000 more cash infusion for that program because it does cost us some money, but we are cleaning up properties around Lovington, and the citizens are very happy.
Clean up the eyesores?
Eyesores, public nuisances. The thing about Operation Cleanup, what people don't understand is we work with the legal, lawful owner of that property. We don't work against them. We get their written express consent to improve that property. Most of the time, it takes us, these are out-of-state property owners that don't know, the condition of their property or that it's being illegally occupied. Half the time is spent tracking who is the owner of that property. We've never put a lien on an Operation Cleanup property. So we work with the owners. And the other key factor is it's got to be a public safety issue. There has to be criminal activity there. It has to be impacting the neighborhood in a negative way. And that's how we're able to do it. So we've improved or demolished 15 structures to date. We've towed over 50 junked vehicles. And, sometimes there's complications. If there's asbestos at that property, we have to get it cleaned up and.
Now, I know on Love Street, right down the street where I'm at, you've got a big old green dumpster up there.
Roll-off, yes.
The roll-off. And it's already full over there.
Right. Yeah, we contract those through Waste Management, and that's part of our cleanup efforts, and that's where, honestly, a lot of the money is spent because those roll-offs go for about $475 each. And a regular job to clean up a property, you might go through 10 or 20 roll-offs.
Is that right? Gee,
yes.
Wow.
Yes. So, but I think the citizens are behind it. We are doing it, complying with the law. We always research a property, but, a lot of these properties also are trailers that burned down.
Yeah.
And the owner didn't have insurance on them. And now they're centers for criminal activity, arson, prostitution, drug use.
Right.
So they're a public nuisance. They're a public safety hazard. And that's how we're able to do it.
Now, do you get a lot of volunteers for this cleanup?
To be honest, the way we save money is we use city agencies to do it. So we have our one code enforcement officer, and the street department is the one that does it. So we don't hire private contractors. The street department demolishes the property, but obviously we need to cart that off, and that's where you see those green roll-offs. So,
But you're not asking the citizens to help out?
no, it's, and I'm going to help. You were asking me about Saturday. I think that's a Main
yes.
Street operation cleanup. That's a different entity. No, the citizens don't help out with our code enforcement operation cleanup. That's done with city employees. But I will be there on Saturday to clean up as well.
Well, tell us about this cleanup then.
I know it's through Main Street, and they do it every year in the spring. And I don't know what properties they've targeted to clean up, but I'm gonna be there and help out.
Yeah, I know, and it's such an incentive to keep your city looking good, isn't it?
It's hard. As Mayor Roberts said, it took us a long time to get here. We're not going to change it overnight. It's going to be a work in progress for a while. So, but we're out there. Hopefully, we can get maybe a second code enforcement officer this year to help our lady out, and it's a full-time job.
And I know that I believe the Chamber of Commerce has that adopt a spot.
Yes, and we're still waiting for someone to volunteer to adopt our spot. I know one of the first spots was City Hall, and the person cleaned that up, and it looks great. So, yeah, that's a great program through the Chamber of Commerce. I serve on the board of that organization, and I think that's one of the best things to happen to our city in a long time. We need it.
We needed it.
We need it.
And and hopefully when we get this construction done, that's going to add beauty to
Yes.
to our downtown.
Yes. We're all waiting for that.
Yes, we are. We may be a few months behind.
I'm not going to touch that one, Tom.
Hopefully we'll get that done really soon, though.
But-
that is for sure. Chief, let's talk about crime stats. What were they like? Did you have more burglaries than anything else last year?
They've actually come down a little bit. Russ was talking about DWIs and things like that. By having more officers on the street and more of a proactive presence, we're able to deter and prevent crime. So I haven't seen the hard stats yet from last year, but in my opinion, it seems like crime has come down. And we're talking about quality of life crime, like property crimes and some of our usual characters that we see around the streets. And, these people that we arrest 20, 30, 40, 50 times that seem to get out like the next day or the next week, and we encounter them again. And it's very frustrating.
Nothing, because then it goes to the DA's office, right? And they
it goes to the courts, and a lot of times the judge's hands are tied and the DA's hands are tied because of these laws and these policies that are put in place in Santa Fe. And it's very frustrating for law enforcement. You want to help these people, but they have mental health issues or drug abuse issues, or a lot of times both, and they get caught in the criminal justice system, and it's the old revolving door. And we're put in the place of being social workers. We're not trained to be social workers. We get some training in that, dealing with people with mental impairments, but that's not our full-time job. But, since they emptied out the state hospitals, we're forced to deal with these people more and more on an everyday basis. And we want to help them. A lot of times we just don't have the tools. That's one of the reasons we signed up to this LEAD program in Hobbs, the Law Enforcement Assisted Diversion Program.
I heard about that, yeah.
Yeah, so we're involved with that. I've actually personally referred a few people into that program, just people that need help.
Yeah.
So,
but here's the deal. I spoke to the Carlsbad House people last week, Phil Houston.
Okay.
And I asked him, Phil, I said, you can have all the treatment that you want. You can all have all the facilities to help those who need help, but it's not till they make up their minds that they want help.
I agree. It's got to be a conscious decision on their part. The interesting thing about the LEAD program, which I did not agree with at first, is that they don't drug test you. So you don't have to be abstinent and it kind of makes sense because very few people go cold turkey off of drugs and just give it up one day and then it's done. They have relapses. Sometimes it's a gradual process where they taper off and may take years. So these people in this program just don't throw you away when it happens, because it's kind of like a slippery slope. Some people do just quit cold turkey. You lock them up, they lose their kids, they lose their job, they lose their house. But most of the time it's a gradual thing.
Mhm.
So it's kind of a new concept. I hope it works. But you're right. That person has to make a conscious decision to give up that lifestyle. And a lot of times it means moving away, losing your old friends,
Right. Especially your old friends.
right? So
Yeah.
you do whatever it takes. But it doesn't happen overnight.
You know, my brother who was becoming an alcoholic, and he told me later how he did it, how he beat it. I said, because he had gotten his master's, and we were talking after the show. I mean, after the graduation, and I said, "Why didn't you tell me that you had a problem with it?" And he said, "I couldn't. I was ashamed. I had to do it by myself." So what did you do? You go into rehab? You know, there's 12 steps and everything. He said, "Nope, I did the cold turkey." I said, "Well, how did you do that?" He said, "I made up my mind. I had a goal to become a drug and alcohol counselor,
Yes.
and that's how he did it."
And a lot of times they make the best counselors
Yep.
because they can, it's like the rehabilitated convict who goes in and talks to the people in the jail.
Mm-hmm.
They have credibility because they've been there. They've walked in those shoes. They've been in that life. So a lot of times the best substance abuse counselors are the ones that are reformed.
Right.
And I think they're able to connect better rather than someone who's never done drugs or never, had an alcohol problem.
Mm-hmm.
I think, but it's kind of rare to go cold turkey. I've had people tell me, you arrested me 10 or 15 times until you took my kids away from me with CYFD.
Wow.
Then that light went on and they stopped. So you never know what it's going to take where that light bulb goes off and they're like, you know what, I've got to change my life.
Yep.
But you just keep trying and trying and trying. And unfortunately, we lack a lot of resources to help these people.
Around here, yes, we do.
And it's a bigger and bigger problem. It's, it starts at a very young age. It starts with things like vape pens and other kinds of, you go up that ladder and fentanyl is just everywhere. And it's so dangerous, and other drugs are laced with fentanyl.
Straighten out some of the myths about methanol, Chief.
About
Methanol? I mean, not methanol.
fentanyl? Yes, sir.
Straighten out some of the myths about that. You always hear the time, if you touch one of those capsules, most likely you will die.
That's a little bit of, they said that, and I just took training, and that was a little overdone. It's usually not quite that bad, although there are situations where that's happened. It is very powerful. The thing about fentanyl is because it's made so irregularly, you don't know what the dose is in that pill, right? Because it's disguised in other forms of, usually we get the M30 pills, which are oxycodones, but you don't know how much cut is in that, how much fentanyl is in that.
Wow.
So you're playing Russian roulette every time you swallow one, you smoke one, you crush it up. I mean, and like I said, on a weekly basis, we're administering Narcan. Sometimes we have to Narcan people 5-6 times to bring them around.
Wow. I think we did a story this morning on the show that
They're going to make it over the counter now.
over the counter.
Yes.
Right.
Yes, which I have mixed feelings about that. Yes, it should be available, but are you perpetuating the drug problem by, addicts carry fentanyl?
Mm-hmm.
So they're kind of like, well, it's safe to do drugs because my buddy will bring me out of it with this Narcan.
Right.
And I don't know if that really addresses the problem.
That Narcan, for those listeners who don't know what that particular drug or particular tool does, it stops the addiction at that moment? Or
It
what?
doesn't stop the addiction. It's an opiate receptor blocker, and it's just a simple nasal spray.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're under the influence of any kind of oxycodone, hydrocodone, heroin, or fentanyl, it's like a light switch. It immediately blocks the receptors, so everything that's affecting that person to stop breathing is erased.
Russ Black?
Well, one comment about the effects of Narcan. The effects of Narcan only last about 2 hours, and the fentanyl can actually last for 8 to 10 hours in the system. So there's also been reports of people who've OD'd, been brought out of it under the Narcan. Then when the Narcan wears off, they slip back into the overdose state.
That's 100% correct. And unless they have more Narcan with them, or they're in a hospital where they keep, hitting them again and again and again with the Narcan because they're monitoring these symptoms, they die. There's over 100,000 drug deaths, overdoses in our country last year.
So for having one thing of Narcan in your pocket doesn't make those
No.
drugs safe to do.
Not as with something as strong as fentanyl. Like
Right.
I said, we have to zap people 5-6 times sometimes to bring them out of it, to revive them back to life. I mean, we have the supplies.
And we've almost lost 2 different police officers from just coming in contact with the drugs during searches.
Right. Right. So we're very careful with it.
Got to be. Chief, I know you've been there now 10 years, right?
12 years.
12 years. When you first came here 12 years ago and climbed up the administration level, what's the difference that you see from 12 years ago that is improved in 12 years, or are we still trying to battle it?
In terms of
Crime
used to be meth, and meth. And then heroin made a comeback. I see drugs affecting mental health issues more.
Mm-hmm.
I see more people on the streets that, their issues haven't been addressed. I see drugs kind of more widespread and more prevalent. And then fentanyl just takes it up to another level. When I arrived here, I mean, back where I'm from, meth wasn't a big thing. You didn't hear about it much. And
right.
Out here, it's everywhere. And it still is here. But fentanyl has just taken over so much because it's a depressant and meth is a stimulant. So,
yeah.
But in terms of the city and things like that, we have to come back. We have to come back. We have to clean up the city. I think we're in the right direction with crime. The budget's gotten better. We've got more officers.
Yes.
And, that's a deterrent. Like I said, people see those officers out there. It deters crime. And we're able to cover the streets better. You have 4 on a shift or 5 on a shift rather than 2 on a shift.
Right. There was rumors a few months ago that deputies from the Lee County Sheriff's Office were going to help us patrol the city.
Well, we were in the position where I had to reach out to Sheriff Corey Helton, maybe to take night shift or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And we were just at that edge, but luckily we reversed course and, we went from 13 certified officers up to 23 now, and that made the difference. But he was ready to help at the drop of a hat. He was ready to help us. So I appreciate that. And they still do help us. We always assist each other. Sheriff's office has been great to us.
Well, that's great news. And thank you for stopping by.
Always a pleasure, gentlemen.
Always good to have you on the show.
Yes, sir.
Chief David Miranda of the Lovington Police Department. And coming up, we got local news and then radio with Russ Black next.
Hey, it's me, the voice inside your head. Remember that crash we were in? We spent a week and a